Hi, this is Mike Maloney, and this is a picture of John Maynard Keynes. Every economist that runs things, everybody that is in charge of every central bank on the planet right now, they are all Keynesians. And John Maynard Keynes came up with a theory back in the 30s that governments should have an elastic money supply that can, when the economy turns down, the government can expand the currency supply and basically spend into the wind. And then when things get better again, they can contract the currency supply. Now, this is a cover from Bloomberg Business Week, and it's from November of 2014. I picked this up at my dentist's office back in November of 2014. I asked him if I could have this, and I've been holding it since then, just waiting for the day when all of the energy that is going to be released from the stimulus that these Keynesians have done comes back to haunt us in a horrible crash. Well, that day is upon us now, and so I get to break out this magazine cover that I've been saving for so long, just to say how wrong they are. This says John Maynard Keynes has the last laugh on what works for the global economy. Well, the big problem is that, like I said, all of the economists that run things are Keynesians: Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen. And the problem with these Keynesians is that they think that since they believe it, it has to be true. And because that is their mode of thinking, that since they believe this, it has to be true, and that even if it's proven not true, it still has to be true because they believe it. They've proven time after time that Keynesian economics doesn't work. They're about to prove it again big time, but their answer is still going to be to do more of the same. This is Mario Draghi, the head of the European Central Bank, and this is Kuroda. He is the head of the Bank of Japan. Japan just went negative on their interest rates, so now the central banks that represent 20% of the world's GDP, 20% of the world economy, is now in negative interest rate territory at the central banks. And this is crazy. Before the crisis of '08, nobody had ever heard of negative interest rates. Nobody had even contemplated the concept of negative interest rates or how they would work. This is a Keynesian solution, and it's a solution that can't possibly work. Yet, and we've seen Europe's economy prove this. They've absolutely proven that negative interest rates don't work, so now Japan is doing it. And other countries will follow suit, and I don't know if it'll take a year or 2 years, but you can bet that the US will also be going the same direction. Now, when it comes to these Keynesians, their theory, basically, John Maynard Keynes, the reason it is wrong is it assumes that you can get purchasing power from typing ones and zeros, that you can create a 1 and a 0 and as many zeros as you want behind that one, and that this will actually buy you something. And they think they are creating purchasing power. They do not realize that this, why did we grant them the legal authority and the right to violate the most moral of human principles, thou shalt not steal? When they create a brand new unit of currency, the way it gets its purchasing power is by robbing all the other units of currency of a minute amount of purchasing power and transferring that to the new units that they're typing. And so this thing with Keynes, having an elastic currency supply and spending into the wind, spending when things get bad and expanding the currency supply, it doesn't create new purchasing power. What it does is steals it from one sector and gives it to another. So it just causes a wealth transfer, but there's a bunch of frictional energy in the middle because it has to go through the central bank, through the banks, through the government. And here we have the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. This is the total assets of the Federal Reserve, now at over $4.4 trillion. So they have been able to counterfeit $4.4 trillion and purchase real investable assets. This is a morally corrupt principle, and it's going to end up in a disaster for all of us. This is the amount of U.S. treasuries held by the Federal Reserve. Now, I don't know if I need to remind you that we have to work in the future to pay off these treasuries. We have to work and we have to pay taxes to pay the principal and the interest on this almost $2.5 trillion worth of treasuries that the Federal Reserve bought by counterfeiting. And I'm just talking about the Federal Reserve right now. The rest of the world does the same thing. These are the mortgage-backed securities held by the Federal Reserve. How did they get the right to go and buy up real estate? I mean, they own $1.95 trillion worth of mortgages. This is real estate that the Federal Reserve bought by counterfeiting. They typed ones and zeros. And so this just transfers a bunch of wealth from them to the rest of the economy to them and to the financial sector. And the proof that the Keynesian economics doesn't really work. I mean, they've created this enormous stock market bubble that we've gone back into here. And if you've probably seen a chart that I've done in the past where I put base currency underneath this stock market rally, and they're almost identical. But what you see now is the stock markets have rolled over and they're back to late 2013 levels. And that's the reason that I am dragging out this Bloomberg cover photo of John Maynard Keynes, where they proclaimed that he had all the correct answers, that Keynesian economics is correct. But it's going to cause some major problems, and the problems are now upon us. Thank you very much for listening to this video, and we'll see you next time.